thinking that I was being prepared to go to college, so that someday I too could have a slice of the pie called the American dream. However, as I get closer to finishing high school and entering college, I'm beginning to see how I, along with the millions of other students in the public education system, am not ready for college. Giving one guidance counselor the responsibility of helping hundreds of students means that a lot of students don't get the help that they need with the college process. But even before we get to that, our schools are extremely under-resourced and underfunded, and they place more of an emphasis on showing us how to take tests than they do on actually teaching. Schools that serve large populations of low-income youth of color are heavily policed. Every morning when I walk into school, I have to take everything out of my pockets and take off my belts and go through scanners and metal detectors. Most of the time we're late for class because there are long lines caused by the metal detectors. And what disturbs me is that there are actual police officers in our schools who have the authority to give us tickets, and they have little precincts in a lot of large campuses with very little accountability to the Department of Education, and they are led by the NYPD. They have precincts where they can interrogate young people. How are we supposed to focus on learning with the few resources we already have when we have to put up with being treated like we've just committed a felony? There are many who believe that we are violent young people who need to be policed, but that is not true. Groups that I work with, such as the Urban Youth Collaborative, have shown and proven in conjunction with many other high school groups all over the nation that restorative justice practices dramatically reduce violence in schools and the need for suspensions. And they are very cost-effective measures, yet we see little to no funding being put into those programs and almost everything being put into making sure that we are treated like criminals. As if everything I've already described is not bad enough, there is an attack on public education. The Department of Education, controlled by our businessman of a mayor, is trying to use business-type reforms on our schools. What that ends up looking like is the closing of many schools, which are eventually replaced with privately run charter schools that have been shown to be very ineffective. These charter schools, which are run like businesses, can hire teachers off the street, can set their own standards for students, accept students based on lottery-based processes, so eventually people from those communities are not accepted into the schools anymore. Now, I don't know about everyone else, but to me, this seems to fall in line with the larger gentrification of large low-income communities of color like the Bronx, where I'm from. What doesn't make sense to me is, why would the Department of Education be so intent on closing struggling schools after the DOE has spent decades withholding resources and funding that these schools desperately need to do better? The interesting thing is, though, that it's not just happening here in New York City. It seems that there's a national movement to phase out public education. When my national organization, the Alliance for Educational Justice, was supposed to meet with Arne Duncan May 19th of last year, he bailed on us and instead sent his committee to meet with us. Now, why would a nation that claims to be invested in public education not send their National Secretary of Education to meet with parents, teachers, and students? We will not stand